Hey, it's GW here. Hey, what happens when you buy an old motel and people start dying left and right? And the next thing you know, the hotel you find out has one of the 7 gateways to hell. Well, Lucio Fulci directed aka The Seven Doors of Death, aka The Beyond. Came out in 1980. This thing, I'm telling you what, has everything a horror fan could dream of. It has gratuitous violence, mystery, zombies, ghosts, just a whole smorgasbord of stuff. Death by Tarantula. There's a new one. It also has zombies. A lot of zombies. A woman getting her head melted in acid. This is one of the more interesting Lucio Fulci films. But basically what happens is Lisa, who plays by Lucio Fulci regular Catherine McCall, inherits a hotel. Now in 1927, in the film, this hotel was the scene of a ghastly crime because one satanic disciple was nailed to the wall and melted with quicklime acid. That sets off a horrible chain of events 50 years into the future. And again, it's pretty interesting to see this thing. As you can see, big fan of it. One of the more interesting things about this movie, as it is probably Fulci's one of Fulci's creative films. If you guys don't know him, you should check him out. He is a legend in the horror community. He's put out all kinds of horror. He switched to horror later on in his career and did some mystery, and then even a western, even a medieval film called Conquest, which if you have Full Moon streaming, you guys can check that out. It was on there. It's a really bad B movie. Oh, excuse me. But what makes this film, to me, one of my favorites is because if you go into it, you really don't know what to expect. There's also a death by a canine. Canine rips a girl's throat out. It's pretty wild. And it really kickstarts, the whole zombie craze. In fact, another Fulci movie that doesn't really get much credit is a movie called Zombie, simply put. Now, if you read about anything about this film is ridiculously crazy and it goes all over the board. However, it is known in most horror circles as the precursor for Dawn of the Dead, unofficially, quote unquote. But we'll get into this film in just a little bit. But The Beyond is a fun movie because, like I said, you really don't know where it's going to go. The deaths are just gratuitously spectacular. Although the tarantulas look a little bit fake, I'm not going to lie to you. The beginning scene shocks you into watching the rest of the film, which is pretty interesting. Let's see. Stars Catherine McCall. And David Wardeck. David Wardeck plays the lead in the film. Sarah Heller's character is pretty interesting because she may or may not be a ghost. And I'm not going to reveal that. So you guys can check that out. And again, like I said, it's called The Seven Doors of Death over here. And finally it was given a proper release and retitled The Beyond. In fact, Arrow Video has put out a 3-disc set of it with a ton of extras that you guys should check out. And this is pretty neat, and I love the latex gore effects. But basically, hotel where a portal to hell sits. It's a pretty interesting story. And this was coming at the tail end of Fulci's horror career. Since then, he's done a ton of stuff. Cat in the Brain, Nightmare Symphony is pretty awesome. That's a film where a director may or may not, he hallucinates a lot, basically. And I'm not going to give away the plot, but it is pretty cool. Fulci has really turned around. He actually has a hell of a following. And I think if you guys are interested in his work, you guys should start with The Beyond. Now, Zombie, on the other hand, has gotten a lot of flack because, like I said, it's the unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's 1972 classic. And on that note, if you've ever seen Dawn of the Dead, which I know a lot of people have, my grandmother lived by the Century 3 Mall. That's where that thing was filmed. And I can remember being 5 or 6, running through that mall, and then watching the movie. I ate at the Brown Derby. You know what I mean? I walked up around the balcony and looked down at the stores. And it's just sad that a piece of history is now going to be torn down. And, it's just worth mentioning because, like I said, I was at the mall whenever that, shortly after that thing had filmed. I think that filmed in 70, I would say by 87 or something. I was up there every couple of weeks. My mom, we went to go visit her in McKee Sports, so Century 3 Mall was just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And it's just, like I said, it's really sad for me to see a piece of history get destroyed, but, city's got to do what the city's got to do. So probably when this thing gets on YouTube and uploaded, that mall will no longer be there. But eventually we're going to talk about Zombie. Now, if you haven't seen Zombie, again, it's done by Lucio Fulci. And it was made in Italy. And of course, the first tagline is, in Italy, it was considered the unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead. In England, it was known as Zombie Flesh Eaters and was banned as obscene. In America, it was simply called Zombie. Makes sense. And advertised with the depraved tagline, "We are going to eat you." That makes sense. If zombies eat people, why not throw that in the tagline, right? Tina Farrow, Ian McCullough, Al Cliver, and Richard Johnson star in this worldwide splatter sensation directed by, like I told you before, Lucio Fulci. And it remains one of the most eye-skewering, skin-ripping, gore-gushingly graphic hits of all time. Now, a couple things about this movie. If you ever want to see a shark take on a zombie, you will see it in this movie. They do Fulci has a wonderful scene of a woman getting a piece of a door splinter stuck in her eye, and it's slow motion, and it's one of the greatest camera scenes in horror history because it keeps flashing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? Bam. And it's great. Let's see. See if there's any deleted scenes. One thing about Fulci is that he puts everything he wants into films. There's no deleted scenes. There's trailers. There's all kinds of stuff. Now, this bad boy was released in 1979. So, and this one's put out by Blue Underground, and they made a special edition of it. So Fulci is a pretty badass director. Like I said, he later on in his career, he directed westerns and medieval fantasy movies and mystery movies. He decided to dabble in everything. But check out The Beyond. He actually did another movie called House by the Cemetery. That is a sort of gore-soaked take on the Dr. Frankenstein legend. So you guys should check that out if you're interested. Cat in the Brain, done deal. That movie, pretty much, you really don't know what's going on in it. But I just wanted to share those with you because, like I said, big fan of the Beyond. I am not going to get into a lot of it because, to me, when I first saw it, I was pretty much shocked that something like that could come out of the 80s. So ferocious, so gore soaked, so zombie filled, and so disparaging, the tone of the film was. Because you're like, okay, these dudes are in hell, how are they going to get out? And some of the greatest effects in that movie, see if actually who did the effects, doesn't say. But I'm probably guessing it's probably, somebody Italian who worked on a lot of Fulci films. But a lot of people don't know Fulci. They know, American horror directors like Rob Zombie, Ryan Nicholson, Clive Barker. But some of these Italian guys have some of the best movies, horror-wise, you guys will ever see. So, with that in mind, so that was one section of the movie. Another film I want to talk about, just briefly, because it's another one that hit pretty much under the radar, and it's filmed in the tradition of Blair Witch. And I know what you guys are saying, another found footage movie. This one's a little different. It's called Willow Creek. And believe it or not, it's directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. And your guys are going, okay, who's Bobcat Goldthwait? Bobcat Goldthwait was on Police Academy 2. He played the gang leader Zed. I followed his career since I was little. I love the guy. I thought he was crazy and outrageous, and I liked him. Anyway, he is a very big Bigfoot enthusiast. So he took the Blair Witch formula and he transferred it into a movie called Willow Creek. Willow Creek is about a couple who go on and actually try to search out for Bigfoot. Jim and Kelly take a camping trip into the mountains to research and try to find Bigfoot. And you know how this goes. Before long, they're lost in the woods. They camp out and they wander into a den of Bigfoot. Now, this film is not particularly scary until the final scene. I watched this down here with the lights off, and guys, I gotta tell you something. Bobcat Goldthwait makes that final scene so real, so scary, that you just go numb with fear. And that's the scene that works in this film. The rest of it, I mean, it's okay. It's an okay film. But the rest of it, it builds up. It's, like I said, a Blair Witch sort of formula, builds up. It has deleted scenes, making of Willow Creek. And you know what? Most people, when they see Bobcat Goldthwait, he's crazy, he's wiry, he's off the wall. But when you see him in the behind-the-scenes making of this, he is so composed. He wants the audience to be scared. He wants them to come on a journey with them. And he is really, out of character. So I suggest you guys check out Willow Creek. If you're not even a horror fan, if you like movies like Blair Witch, definitely give it a run. And if you also like, or a Bigfoot movie and collect all those movies, Boggy Creek, Return to Boggy Creek, check Willow Creek out. Because it does not disappoint. It actually will scare you in that final scene. He sets it up so well that it creeps you out even hours after watching it. You keep rewinding that scene in your head, which I think it makes it work. Alright, and the last movie we're going to talk about today on Movie Talk, it's called Deranged. Deranged came out, trying to see when it came out. It came out in 1974. I was going to say that, but, I wasn't sure. Deranged is the story of Ed Gein, or an Ed Gein-like figure, named Ezra Cobb. If you guys don't know the Ed Gein legend, Ed Gein was a serial killer in Plainsfield, Wisconsin. And he was just a local guy. You know, he was one of the simple townsfolk, although Ed had some bad habits. Ed liked to dig up graves. Ed used to make furniture out of bones and skin. And he was sort of the Leatherface of Wisconsin. In fact, that's where the legend came from. And then shortly after 1950, Alfred Hitchcock, of course, adapted some of that for his, hit film Psycho. But not until 74 was a very good Ed Gein movie put on screen. Stars Robert Blossom as Ezra Cobb. Stars Cosette Lee, Mickey Moore, Robert Warner. Didn't know that. Let's see. Now here's an interesting fact about the film. Producer Tom Carr raised $200,000 for the budget deranged as a concert promoter for acts such as Led Zeppelin, Three Dog Night, Temptations, and Rod Stewart. So this guy was a bit of a crime file. But Ed Gein, basically what happened to him was he was just digging up graves, putting together furniture made of bones and skin. Although Ed sort of lost it one day and killed local store owner Bernice Warden. Police came to confiscate her, or, do an investigation. Ed said he didn't see her. But Ed told his friend, yeah, she's hanging up in my barn. Sure enough, police kick in the door. They find Bernice Warden's carcass hanging up from the rafters. And of course, Ed Gein, admitted to it. Newsreels went wild with the footage. And basically, Ed Gein died peacefully in the Plainsfield Criminally Insane Asylum. Model prisoner, apparently. But several movies have been made on the legend. This one being one of the most creepy because it is pretty much, the first one. Now, Steve Railsback hit the ball clear out of the park with his film Ed Gein, which, again, characters and everything else were made present. This one, the characters' names are covered up by anonymity, and I like the way this one is shot because it's done in an old sort of newsreel style where the movie's not serious, but they want to show you exactly what happened. Now, the Steve Railsback version goes a little bit graphic. Both scenes have scenes of Ed dressing up like his mother. If you read the legend, you will figure out why he does that. The hamster didn't fall off the wheel, guys. We're not going to lie. But the scene's creepy in particular, and Ed had mother issues. This one, believe it or not, was rated R from 74. But if you watch it, it's clearly a PG-13. Now, the B side of this is a movie called Motel Hell, which has a very, very big cult following. And it is a pretty ridiculous story as far as horror films go. And it wanted to turn the horror genre tongue-in-cheek, if you will. Turn it on its ear and say, hey, let's not go for anything too splattery. Let's go for the ridiculous. And that's exactly what they did. Stars Rory Calhoun, Paula Link, Nancy Parsons, Nino Axelrod. And believe it or not, old-time radio fans would find this name familiar, Wolfman Jack. And it was directed by Kevin O'Connor. Now, this film is ridiculous because it takes the Ed Gein legend and skewers it quite a bit. And it says, you are what you eat, and Farmer Vincent's smoked meat in this creepy horror yarn that packs a punch and goes way beyond where mere terror usually goes. Vincent's popular products contain a special ingredient that the psychotic farmer and his sister would literally kill to keep a secret in his darkly funny fright flick that just might be your cup of meat. One interesting take about this film. Cheers fans, John Ratzenberger's Cliff Clavin makes an appearance in this thing. And co-star Monique St. Pierre was Playboy's 1979 Playmate of the Year. So if you're into that thing, you should check it out. When I first saw this movie, the movie was ridiculous until the end, where Rory Calhoun puts on a pig mask and tries to imitate Leatherface. It's very interesting. Anyway, both these films are worth checking out. Deranged is simply the better title on here because it takes the subject matter way more seriously. Motel Hell just kind of goes, well, we see what you watch, let's try this. A lot of people like Motel Hell because in it, Farmer Vincent decides to plant people in his garden like weeds. Yeah, I said it. Plants people in his garden like weeds. But, again, not a bad film. It runs 1 hour and 41 minutes. And like I said, definitely give it out. Now, Arrow Video has done a wonderful treatment of Motel Hell. You can get the anniversary edition, or whatever edition now. And it pulls things from Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and loosely adapts them into this. But like I said, definitely two movies you guys want to check out if you're, bored. And but Deranged, like I said, it's clearly the better title. Just because I'm familiar with the subject matter and I like my horror a little bit seriously. Now, if you're looking for something off the grid, Motel Hell is your cup of tea. Definitely give it a whirl. It does have one hell of a following, which is interesting. And I think it's still being played somewhere today. But definitely give it a whirl. This is put out by MGM. You can buy that on Amazon probably for about $7. Not a bad deal if you're looking for, a couple of good, okay movies to watch. So that's that. I was going to comment on something. What was it? I can't remember. Oh yeah, if you guys haven't noticed or haven't heard, Dog the Bounty Hunter's wife died of throat cancer. So we will miss her. She was a TV icon. She was pretty awesome in that show. And we will miss her. Haven't heard any updates on Blair Witch as of right now, but we're keeping our eyes peeled. Apparently at the end of August, this thing is, like I said, going to hit, PlayStation and Xbox. Or Xbox exclusively, not PlayStation. I'm sorry. So, that's that. Rumor mill has it, too, that they are looking at remaking Candyman, famous Tony Todd film. I don't know how well that's going to go. Child's Play seems to be doing moderate at the box office at best. And like I said, if you guys have one of those VR headsets, the Child's Play 360 experience is available now. I don't know if I plugged that last time, but definitely give that a whirl. Nothing else new in the world of horror as of right now. Still waiting on Rob Zombie's film to drop. And that's about it. Oh, if you guys want to see another cool Bigfoot movie, I'm trying to think. It's called Primal Rage. And right now it's streaming on Showtime. And it is definitely an awesome Bigfoot movie because they've turned Bigfoot just from a creature into a warrior. And you guys check it out. It has awesome deaths in it. And it's streaming right now. You can look it up. It's called Primal Rage. Definitely a very awesome Bigfoot movie. So that'll go good with, Willow Creek. You can watch them back to back. It'd be awesome. But definitely check out The Beyond. I cannot tell you enough about it. And if you haven't seen it, for the 80s, damn shocking zombie picture. And I think, die-hard horror fans will enjoy it. Anyway, tomorrow we're going to talk about some more horror. We'll figure out what's going on. And that's that. Oh, one more thing I do want to mention. I read this a couple weeks ago and I was like a little bit upset about the deal. But when you watch Friday the 13th, nothing in the world could kill Jason Voorhees. No fire, FBI team blew him up, couldn't even kill him. Freddy Krueger couldn't even kill him. So you know what happens? A lawsuit killed Friday the 13th. So I want to thank all the fans, fans of the films who are making their own films right now, because at least they're protected. That's what killed Friday the 13th, the video game, guys, was the fact that the lawsuit came out a year or two ago, and they put an injunction on the game. So we get no Space Jason, right? We get no boat board, get no New York board. We're just pretty much stuck. So Gun Media had pulled the plug on that. Sean Cunningham, he was involved in a lawsuit with Steve Minner. Or not Steve Minner. I can't even think of the guy's name. Fire alarm's going off, you guys, if you can tell. But basically a lawsuit killed Friday the 13th. Victor Miller. That's who it was. Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham are fighting over who's got rights to the characters. They both appealed. And now nobody knows when the next Friday the 13th movie's coming out. And I think, of all the things in the world, a lawsuit killed one of the most famous mass murderers in horror cinema. And that's sad. Because I actually, I had ideas for Friday the 13th. I love Friday the 13th. They gave a million actors their start. If you go back to the first one, Kevin Bacon got a start in it. Laura Park Lincoln, Part 8. All these different people. And that they could have kept going. They could have went back from before Jason was born. They could have done something about his father, who was known only in screenplay circles as Elias. They didn't. They were going to actually make a reboot sequel that was supposed to have more in it and explain to you why Jason never dies. Well, I think we already know. Every one of the horror community people know Jason's pretty much dead, or if not dead, put on ice for years. Because lawsuits will kick back and forth. And until this thing's done, no one's going to know. And the people that are suffering are the horror community. The people that appreciate those movies, that go to the conventions, you know what I mean? That go see the movies. That no matter how bad a Friday the 13th sequel is, they pay their money because they like the character. We're suffering. So I just wanted to mention that, one of cinema's unstoppable killers was stopped by a lawsuit. You guys can look that up too. And I actually kickstarted the Friday the 13th game. I put in some money. I got the Steel Collector's Edition because I thought I was doing them a favor. I was trying to support them. And the game is awesome. But it's just they were stopped a little bit short of the finish line because of this lawsuit. And I hope they get this thing hashed out quickly and quietly, so that we can enjoy more slasher films. That's my commentary on Friday the 13th. And it's really sad. So maybe we'll see a couple more Nightmare on Elm Streets come down through the pike, or maybe we'll see Freddy's Nightmares finally get released in the United States on Blu-ray, which I really love that show. And if you haven't seen it, you pull them off YouTube. They're not in such great quality, but they were awesome. They aired on 22 Friday nights at 10 o'clock. Freddy's Nightmares. Definitely check them out. Anthology type series. Some of them dealing with the group of Elm Street. Some of them not. But definitely check out a film or an episode called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's about Freddy on trial, and it's one of the better episodes they've ever done. Anyway, it's GW, and that was Movie Talk. Hey, see you tomorrow. We'll talk about some more movies.